by Crazy Dog Loki. My name is Michael Hughes. A lot of people know me as Bruno. I came up in '77 to join the Air National Guard to become a pilot. I came here because I love skiing. I discovered that when I was in Southern California at university. Who knew you could ski there? I didn't know anything about it. Loved it. And I thought, let's move to Alaska. They have snow. So that's how I got here. And so I went to a therapist for a while, like 6 months or something like that. And he was a Methodist minister, really cool guy. And at the end of it, I remember that Monday, the last session I saw him, I didn't know it was going to be the last. I said, you know, and we never talked about this, I'm gay. And he said, okay, we're done. And then that next Wednesday, I met a guy, and the rest is history.
And you ascended in that world.
Yeah, well, probably more accurate would be descended into it. But, you know, looking back on it, I was always afraid, just in general in life. And I never ascribed to being afraid of being found out. I just was a fearful person, just in general. But after, when I came out, it was like, yeah, I'm free. I felt like that. No, now I wasn't, but back then I knew it. In fact, when I came out of the closet, I talked to one priest, and because I started a relationship with the guy 2 days after I admitted it, and I told him, went to him and told him about this, and he said, well, I will deny this publicly, but if it's a loving relationship, I don't have a problem with it. It wasn't a loving relationship. I understand now it was sex. Two guys, you know, sex. But you know, so I listened to that priest. I think he was trying to be compassionate. I understand trying to be compassionate, but is it more compassionate to let people make these mistakes in life and lead them into a life of sin, or is it compassionate to stand up and say no? They may not want to hear it, the people may not want to hear it, but what's best for them. It's not what they want to hear necessarily. Well, eventually, they had this thing called the Imperial Court of All Alaska. This court system started in San Francisco back in the, I think it was the early '70s, and it was originally to fight the discrimination, because there was a lot of discrimination. People were killed because they were gay and stuff. And this kind of formed as an official organization. It's expanded throughout the United States to a lot of different regions, and there's an Alaska version of that. I thought it was kind of cool, you know, going to these shows and stuff, because I'd never seen this stuff before, because drag queens can put on good shows. And it was a lot of fun. And at one point, a couple of years into this, some guys said, well, we had this contest, what's it called, the Closet Queen. It's like guys that want to come out as a drag queen, so they have a contest for that. And so we only have one guy in it, we need some competition. So don't worry, it's fixed, he'll win. I said, okay, if you have a dress. They got this big hoop skirted thing, it's like an opera singer, you know. And I had my beard and everything. I had a straight friend of mine put makeup on, just big rouge and, you know, just over the top stuff. And I came out, it's all lip syncing, or most of the people lip sync, and I lip synced Der Holy Rache from Mozart's Magic Flute and in German. And it turned out I'm a perfect lip singer. And I've lost a video of that, but the crowd goes wild, and I won. Darn, I didn't want to be a drag queen, so. I really feel sorry for kids in general. I mean, society's always been messed up, you know, since the fall, but at least, man, I mean, you look at the political situation, what they're being taught or not taught. You look at the sexual thing, and what these kids are taught is be anything you want to be, you know, and I mean, how can a 4-year-old decide, or a 13-year-old, or if you're not 25, your brain's not fully formed. How can anybody under that age really decide that, oh, I feel, you know, as a boy, I should be a woman? You know, that's what I was made. And without, obviously, people, and that's the fall of religion, too, is contributing to that. Yeah, I just feel sorry for these kids and now adults that fall into this trap. I mean, just think about putting a child on a hormone blocker to delay puberty. That's going to mess them up physically as well as psychologically and emotionally. If it's for really, really young children, they're just starting to move around, starting to read and stuff, I think there's the fantasy, because those drag queens, like I say, are over the top. But it gets much older than that. I mean, kids, you know, especially that age, have wild imagination, so I'm not so sure if it's that negative for that age. I don't know. I just thought I started having this afternoon. But beyond that, I definitely, because you're role modeling something to these kids, and I think about the parents who allow their children to do that. I question that. What is their motivation? What are, you know, where are they coming from? I was thinking about using the term child abuse, really. I can't judge them on that. I don't know. Maybe they're just letting their kids have some fun, or that's what they think they're doing. So I think in the long term, it's negative. You know, why can't they get straight people in to do story time, you know, and act it out and stuff like that? It has to be these flamboyant characters who volunteered, I'm sure, to start doing this. But I think it at some point becomes indoctrination. I don't think it's a healthy thing in general.
I read a long.
Well, I think doing like this, having somebody like myself that has gone through different stages of understanding one's, you know, basically sexuality and where that fits in a God's scheme, I now understand that God doesn't make bad. You know, God will allow things to happen because of our own sin and sin in the world, you know, since the fall. But, you know, I consider, this is where my thinking is right now, that I was made to be heterosexual, and that because of the sins of whoever in the past, the sins of the world, this is what happened to me. I think what the church teaches in the catechism, that it's a disorder. Well, we all have sin is disorder. We all have disorder in our lives. This one happens to be a fairly basic one, your sexuality. And that's, you know, I've learned over the years that that's what it is. My attraction, same-sex attraction, which I still have, is a disorder. It's not the way God wanted me to live. But I've learned to deal with it. Even to the point now, I had a really good confessor a couple of years ago, young guy who's looked down upon the priest up here because he's very conservative and he's the real deal. I mean, a couple times I went to confession and all the urges, all the desires, everything went away. All the temptation just went away. It's like, whoa, this guy's the real deal. If it was more open, I think the church leaders, they tend to repress it and hide it. Priests would be upfront. If priests would stick to the principles of the church, not necessarily some of the leaders, but what the gospel and what is, you know, big and little T tradition has been taught in the church over the years, over just eons and out of the millennia, I think that would help a lot. I think that's the answer to a lot of what's going on. I mean, look at the church attendance. Look, 2/3 of Catholics don't believe in the real presence. Probably because they haven't been told. If everything's kept in the darkness, like the teachings of the church, then the dark one can make use of that, and does. Bishops are supposed to be our shepherds. They're their job, and they have to answer to God for this, to shepherd us into heaven. The priests are their helpers, you know, but it comes from the top. There's only a couple of bishops in the United States that are actually teaching the faith, and not all this wokeness kind of stuff. I mean, how many bishops are restricting politicians from receiving communion if they're pro-abortion in this state? And I'll say it outright, you know, I've never seen that. And we have Murkowski, we have the president, we have Nancy Pelosi, we have all these people that, you know, we see the people, the regular people seeing this, it's like, well, why can I believe this too? I have a very dear friend that believes, and she's very devout Catholic, but believes that, not that abortion's okay, but, you know, and it's understandable, that it's understandable, but she doesn't have any problem with the gay agenda or anything like that. You know, people are people. And I try to tell her, as somebody who's lived that life, that, hey, it's destructive. I would tell them, if they're able to find a good priest that is honest and understands these issues, which would probably be, I would guess, would be somewhat difficult, but that would be number one, if they could do that from the spiritual side, because it is spiritual. It's a spiritual problem, I believe. If they can't find that kind of person, a priest, a deacon, if they can't find that, maybe a good lay person, like when I came out of the closet, I made it widely known in the church. I didn't, nobody bothered, nobody cared. I mean, maybe secretly some of them did, but I never got any hassle because of it. So maybe, like I said, they asked me, the youth director asked me to come to that one group of young people and talk to them, which maybe find somebody like me, that has gone through it and understands what it means and what it is, and what you're going to face, and just the whole gamut of stuff you're going to go through. If that doesn't happen, I guess you could find a therapist of some sort, but you'd have to really do your due diligence to find that one that is not into this woke culture stuff and anything goes, which I think would be rather difficult. Maybe somebody like Dr. Martin Atrop's, the guy who was the psychologist, and he was Methodist minister that I went to, and I was still amazed when okay, you're done. When I said, this is what's going on with me. Find somebody like that. You don't have to go to, if you can't find somebody in the Catholic Church, go to other Christian churches that are not yelling and screaming at you kind of thing, because that's not going to work. You have to somebody that's, I think, a lot of, especially a teenager, let's say, they're going to want to talk to somebody that's real, that has done this, that knows what it's like, versus somebody that's just talking. That's my guess. That's what in what little experience I've had talking to teenagers, especially. You can just see it. All of a sudden they're paying attention to you. Well, that's big time right there, and I think hopefully it has some impact on them at some point in their lives. I wish I'd had somebody in my life that was in the position I am now to talk to me about things. I don't know if I would have done anything differently, but it would have given me something more to think about rather than just being on my own. Well, people become afraid of speaking the truth. I mean, look at politicians. No, politicians in general. I used to be involved in politics, so I dated President Reagan's daughter. Okay, so I know politics, at least back then. I know that they're spineless cowards, most of them. They will say whatever they have to say that they think will get them votes. However, I think things might be changing a little bit, hopefully back to the better. I mean, look at President Trump. Did a great job, but to tell you the truth, I didn't vote for him the first time. I did not vote for Hillary, but I couldn't vote for a man that had said the things what we saw in film, let's put it that way, about what he'd done to women and stuff. It's like, I can't vote for this. But that guy spoke the truth as he saw it at any given minute, and look at the following he got. And I admire him for that. I don't necessarily admire him for how he did it, and the audacity that he uses, but we have people standing like the bishops, a couple, Corleone in San Francisco, and I can't remember, the Strickland down in Texas somewhere. Those kind of men standing up and saying, no, this is the truth. And they have huge followings. You see that kind of a thing, well, whatever level, whether it's political, whether it's the church, whether it's in private life, if people are willing to speak the truth, yeah, you're going to get a hassle because of it from the numbskulls, but who cares? You're going to influence a lot more other people that are willing to say, man, that sounds right to me, it resonates with me. So I'm hoping we see more and more of that. Obviously, we're not right now, but if you have politicians really, especially political, this has never happened. They always try to please people. Say, hey, I'm not going to stand up for that. Then they get voted out, and then they can't do anything. But at least they stood up for the truth, and that's, you know, they're going to have to face God too, and you know, yeah. I like Governor Ron DeSantis. I mean, he just doesn't pull any punches. He's like Trump, but in a nicer way, in a more calm way, like what he did with Disney. I'm like, yes. I mean, I hate to see Disney like that, but he said, okay, no tax exempt now. You're subject. You're not separate anymore. You're part of the part of Florida. I love that, and I think a lot of people do. I don't know about the majority of people, but silent people, I think so. Well, it'll be really interesting this next couple of elections to see what happens.